Welcome to another episode of Salt Air. My name is Tom Hatch. I'm the creator of Salt, and with me today is Megan. Megan is on the open team, and she has been in charge of getting the latest release of Salt out the door. And so we've asked Megan to come on and go into a deeper dive as to what some of the great new features are that we have inside of this latest release of Salt. Now, Megan, what can you tell us about the Fluorine release?
All right, yeah, so the first thing I want to dive into is deprecations, because that is one of the really important things when deciding to upgrade and whether you can upgrade with your current setup. So let's go ahead and dive into those.
Oh, yeah. So the first thing we've got is this whole Python 2 deprecation. It's become increasingly difficult to maintain Python 2 and 3. But more importantly, Python 2 is about to be deprecated itself, and many of the dependencies that we are using inside of Salt are no longer being supported in Python 2 after the deprecation of Python 2. And we got a Salt enhancement proposal through recently where we announced that the sodium release of Salt, so that's 2 releases out after Fluorine, we are going to formally deprecate Python 2 in Salt. But, now that I'm looking at this, Megan, I think we should probably do another Salt Air, just going over all the concerns and questions with the whole Python 2 deprecation, because it's a big deal. And so I'm going to say let's punt answering a lot of those questions for that time. But it is definitely worth noting in here that Python 2 is going away. And the upshot, though, is that every major distro out there now has built-in support for Python 3, and we're going to be able to run on top of it. Sorry, Megan, I hijacked you there. Did you have any other comments on here?
Oh, no, you're great. I agree. This is a topic that's going to need further discussion because there's a lot more details to it. So that works. So obviously that's an important announcement that we were able to make with this release. In terms of things that were deprecated in this release, one of the things to watch out for is we changed the way that YAML is able to render within Salt. One of the problems with the YAML is it's not able to properly to render Unicode string types in lists and dictionaries. And so what you'll need to do if you're using Python 2, using those list and dictionary types, is you'll need to use the Jinja filter to JSON YAML. We've tested all of those Jinja filters. And as you can see on the right-hand side, that's an example of how you would use that Jinja filter using a list or dictionary. The reason behind this change, there was a couple, is in previous releases, we were actually handling this rendering in kind of a workaround hacky way. And a lot of multiple use cases kept creeping up and bugs around it. And so that is one of the reasons. Another reason is now we are able to use the C-based YAML loader, which we have actually seen some performance enhancements in that. After releasing 2.0, we got a lot of community feedback, and this was very troublesome for users they did not even want to upgrade. So what we're going to do in the 2019 2.1 release is we're going to allow the old YAML renderer if you set a configuration change. So make sure you check the release notes to see what that configuration option is going to be, and you can then use the old renderer. You do not have to use the Jinja filters. But this will also provide us so that we can also use the new YAML renderer that it does include the performance enhancements. A couple of more deprecations. There is more that is in this list, so make sure you do go check the release notes. But this is just surfacing a couple of important ones. Local clients expression form is now replaced by target type. Master shuffle is replaced by random master. The WinExe Python library that is used within Salt Cloud to help bootstrap Windows VMs, it is going to be replaced by pipzigzag because WinExe was kind of hard to figure out how to install because it wasn't readily available in a lot of the operating systems. So that's an exciting deprecation. Another thing that changed was the Docker state module was removed. In light of separating it into 4 separate state modules. The ones being listed there: Docker container, image, volume, and network.
So yeah, on that one, I should probably clarify, make sure we're all on the same page. We did not remove support for Docker. We just split it up.
Right, yes. So the Docker alias will not be there anymore. You have to actually specify the Docker state module you're using.
Right.
Perfect. Okay, so the 2019.2 release also added a lot of network automation. We kind of glanced over a lot of this in the previous Salt Air episode, but so let's go over those another time with a little bit more detail. The Netbox execution module had a lot of new features added into it, and there was a new Netbox external pillar, which gives users the ability to query Netbox for information about the devices and then have that be in the pillar information. We've now integrated Netmiko into Salt. You can now manage Arista switches. You can manage Cisco switches with NX API instead of how we previously were doing it over SSH. And there's a couple of new execution modules, the Cisco confparse and the pairing to be execution module. And then also, if you want to check the release notes, there was some new additions made into the napalm as well.
Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to comment here is all of the hard work that we put into systems outside of Napalm. Napalm is a fantastic hook into network management, and it allows us to have a lot of granular and a very, very far reach as far as managing network devices. But even then, we have extensive native support inside of Salt as well for all of these and many other interfaces into network devices. And so this is really exciting to see that this continues to grow in a really positive way. Thanks, Megan.
Yeah. So to iterate upon sort of the third-party integrations outside of just the network scope, the things that were added into this release were Ansible playbook state and execution modules. There is also now a new Docker Proxy Minion, which allows you to manage Docker containers as if they are actual Salt minions without even having Salt installed on them. And then the Terraform Salt-SSH Roster is also added.
So these are some really exciting things. I mean, that Docker Proxy Minion allows us to even more easily than before go in and communicate with elements of Docker at a much more powerful level. But also this integration into the Ansible playbooks so that we can run Ansible playbooks through state and execution modules. Now, I mean, it's Salt for a very long time has had integration and the ability to run Puppet and Chef routines, but the ability also now to have this really close tie into Ansible systems is really positive. Salt is an amazing automation system, and it brings a lot more to the table than just configuration management and deployment of resources. And so if you're stuck with a config management system that isn't quite as fantastic as Salt, then we've still got you covered.
Perfect. Yeah, so now that we've gone over the third-party integrations, let's see what we've actually improved within the core Salt. A new feature was added that allows you to add custom environment variables actually per module, which allows you to set those environment variables for the shell commands that are run. Currently, it is only supported on those 3 modules, apt package, yum package, and zipper, but it can be added to more, and it is on a per module use case. Another exciting thing that was added was Failhard, which allows a user to make sure that states don't continue to run if there's a failure that shows up. You can actually change that at a state level. So if you have a specific state that you are okay with it failing, but everything else, you can actually override that global setting on a state level now. Another exciting new feature added was Salt-SSH's ability to use different Python versions. You'll need to configure this in your configuration file, but what it allows you to do is to use, for example, Python 2 targeting a Python 3 machine. And it also allows you to use alternative versions of Salt other than what is actually installed on your system. Another new feature included was the ability for you to include relative paths in Jinja. On the top picture there, you can see how you used to have to include the file foo, for example. And on the picture below there, all you have to do is include the relative path to the file foo. And also a couple of Windows additions and changes is Salt API is now supported on Windows. And another small little exciting feature is the password is no longer required with run as unless the minion is running as a restricted user. So that's all we have for this release. I just wanted to say thank you to the entire community that helped make this release amazing, and I'm looking forward to the next release and what we can add.
Yeah, the Fluorine release was a big release for us, and it accounts for a massive amount of community contribution as well as a huge amount of work on the part of the core engineering team here at SaltStack. And so I definitely want to put out a big thank you to all of the people who have helped us in this release as our community continues to deliver large amounts of really fantastic code into the project. All right, thanks for being on, Megan.
Yeah, no problem.
And thank you all for watching. Until next time, this has been yet another episode of Salt Air.